2019. I hereby declare this meeting of the Howell Township Zoning Board to be open. Adequate notice having been given pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act in the following manner. First, on January 15, 2019, a copy of said notice was mailed to the Star-Ledger and the Tri-Town News. Second, on January 15, 2019, a copy of said notice was hand-delivered to the clerk of the Township of Howell. Third, on January 15, 2019, said notice was posted in the office of the Zoning Board and on the bulletin board in the Howell Township Municipal Building, 4567 Route 9, Howell Township, New Jersey. In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code and your safety, please be advised that this facility is designed with 2 emergency exits, which are on your right at the front and rear of the meeting room. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77.
Thank you, Eileen. Could we have a roll call, please?
Yes, you may. Mr. Hughes?
Here.
Mr. Massa?
Here.
Mr. Mertens?
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell's been excused. Mr. Orozco's been excused. Mr. San Clemente?
Here.
Mr. Saya, I have not heard from. Mr. Moretti?
Present.
And Chairman Nansen, I believe, should be here, but he will be late.
Thank you.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Could everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Swearing in the professionals.
Ms. Beam and Mr. Howard have all been sworn for the evening.
Okay, thank you. Approval of minutes. We have regular meeting, February 4th, 2019. Eligible voters, Hughes, Massa, Mertens, O'Donnell, Orozco, San Clemente, Saya, Moretti, and Nansen. Motion for this?
Make a motion to approve the minutes of February 4th.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Moretti, second by Mr. Massa. We have a roll call, Eileen?
Yes, you may. Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Mr. Massa?
Yes.
Mr. Mertens?
Yes.
Mr. San Clemente?
Yes.
Mr. Moretti?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Minutes for regular meeting, February 11, 2019. Eligible voters, Hughes, Mertens, O'Donnell, Orozco, San Clemente, Saya, Moretti, and Nansen. Motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Mr. Hughes, second by Mr. Moretti. Okay, everybody roll call?
Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Mr. Mertens?
Yes.
Mr. San Clemente?
Yes.
And Mr. Moretti?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Any vouchers,
No vouchers?
correspondence?
No correspondence?
Resolutions?
No resolutions.
Okay.
So now we can just take a recess?
Okay,
Take a recess, Mr. Vice Chair.
we'll take a recess until our chairman shows.
Chairman comes in.
Board will now reconvene.
Oh, Tom, probably Podge, the tall guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what happened with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, our first application for the board be case number BA 18-07, 634 Field LLC, for use variance application of 634 Field LLC as applicant and CMP-1 AAA LLC as owner, seeking use variance approval to allow the applicant, who is building a mover, to store and maintain their equipment and engage in associate activities, with the exception of building, moving work, which is performed off-site on premises known as Block 46, Lot 6, 282 Herbertsville Road, expiration April 30th, 2019.
That application is ready.
Okay, come on up.
good.
So those triangle things are next on the table,
Those are mics.
Thank you.
so you don't have to stand per se.
Let me,
Here,
I always press the wrong one.
because it says off there, so you always think that's for off.
Okay with that, Sherry, we'll send this one a little higher.
Yeah,
This is working up there for you.
the more you can get me out there, the better.
Mike,
Yes,
if you want a handheld, but you have to talk right into it.
yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, those are mics on the table.
We use the handheld, I think.
You want the handheld?
No.
You can have a seat.
Right. Right. If you wish to sit down, those are very sensitive mics,
Yeah.
but there's the handheld in any event.
Did you want to use the handheld, or would you
Let me
like?
see how I do with this, and if it doesn't work out, we'll go to the
Michael
handheld.
Landis.
Yeah, the ones on the table are very sensitive.
Yeah, and you can move those also towards you.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Chair, I just wanted the record to reflect that on application BA 18-07, which is setting up now, I had a sidebar with Mr. Landis, counsel for the applicant, and my understanding is that he recognizes this evening that there is not full board attendance, that is, there's only 6. So he has elected to move forward, but we would be holding the vote for other members to certify the transcript. Just wanted that understanding on the record. Mr. Landis, am I correct?
That is correct, Mr.
Okay, very good.
We'll wait.
And I will be happy to swear your witness in first, whoever's testifying this evening, and then you can proceed.
Thank you. We have 2 witnesses who will testify this evening. Seated to my right is Wayne.
Excuse me,
Yaruzi.
Mr. Landis, you have to sit closer to the mic, or I have to have you use this one?
Handheld would work, and just hold it close, so we're fine.
You have to hold it right up to your mouth. Okay?
Okay, so
Thank you.
634 Field, go ahead. And you were saying, Mr. Landis, witnesses?
The first witness will be Wayne Yaruzi, Y-A-R-U-S-I, and the second is our expert witness, Michael Pierce, who will testify in the capacity of both a professional planner and an engineer.
Very good. I'll ask both to stand, please, and I'll administer an oath. You swear I have to get the spelling. You swear the testimony you give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes?
Yes. I do.
Thank you. Yes, and sir, can you spell your last name?
Y-A-R-U-S-I.
Y-A-R-U-S-I. My
First
hearing
name
is terrible.
Wayne.
And Wayne, okay, and then Michael Pierce, correct, sir?
Michael Pierce, P-I-E-R-C-E.
Very good. Your witnesses, sir?
Thank you. As our first witness, we would call Wayne Yaruzi, who has just been sworn. Mr. Yaruzi, you are a member, am I correct, of the applicant?
Yes, I am.
That is a New Jersey limited liability company,
Yes, it is.
and you are authorized to testify on its behalf this evening, correct?
Yes, I am.
Now, the applicant currently engages in business on the subject property, which is 282 Herbersville Road, correct?
That's correct.
Does it own the property right now?
No,
It rents it,
we rent it.
but you are the contract purchaser of that.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, tell us something about the applicant. In what sort of business does it engage?
We're in a house and building moving business. We move any type of structure. We work the tri-state area.
Now, let me just get some clarification. When you say house moving, are we talking about the standard, you're moving my furniture from one house to the other type of business?
No, we actually move the houses and buildings themselves.
That's when you actually elevate the house and move to another
We do
location?
house elevations, house moving, building moving.
Is that what you do on the subject premises?
No, we don't do any of
No,
that.
no, no, but that's, the business which you operate there is a house moving business, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, now, you started answering my next question, but what work, if anything, do you do in furtherance of the house raising on the premises?
All we do is store our equipment, which are steel beams and wood blocking. We have some trucks and trailers that we have there at the yard for loading and unloading the equipment. The equipment goes out to a job site. It stays under our house until we're done using it, and then it goes back to the yard for storage until the next job calls for it.
Is there any work performed on the premises relevant to the house raising itself?
None whatsoever.
So am I correct in saying all the work is off-site work,
All our work is off-site. That's correct.
and all you wish to utilize the premises for is the storage of equipment and other items.
That's correct.
Tell us specifically what would be stored there.
What we have on site would be just steel beams, wood blocking. We own nothing but brand-new equipment. We like to run a first-class operation, so we have brand-new trucks that are there, which are pickup trucks, trailers, some tractor trailers, and brand-new Bobcats and stuff like that, which we utilize to load and unload equipment, and we take it off-site, and we use it during the course of the day, and it comes back to the yard for storage for the nighttime.
Now, let me ask you about yourself. How long have you been personally in the house moving business?
About 47 years.
It's a family business, correct?
That's correct.
Who's involved?
Well, I am the owner of the company besides my two boys. I have two sons that are involved with me in the business.
And there is another office, but it's in North Jersey, if I'm
We
correct.
have an office up in North Jersey, which we have 3 employees that run that office up there.
How many employees would you have in the premises in Howell Township?
Besides my two sons and stuff like that, we have approximately 3 employees that work with us every day.
Now, during the course,
I'm sorry, so that would be 6 total? You, your 2 sons, plus,
Well, it's usually 4. My younger son works out in the field with me, with the other employees. My older son runs the office up in North Jersey.
I just want to make sure you tell us the maximum number of employees, just because whatever you tell us is going to wind up in a resolution. And so if it's 6, it's 6, that's fine. Just
No, I
the
understand.
maximum number is probably better than,
Yeah, no, I understand. No, the maximum employees that we have would be 4. I would say 4.
does that include you?
No, I should take that back. It's going to be 5, including me.
Okay.
now, during the course of a normal business day, would these 5 individuals be working on the premises?
No.
Tell us what happens during a normal workday.
Well, normally, we arrive at the yard around 7 o'clock. If we're all loaded up and ready to go, we start the trucks and we're out. We go to the job site. If we get done early, what we'll do is we'll come back and we'll offload the trucks and we'll load for the next day. If we're running late, we'll just bring the trucks in about 6, 7 o'clock at the latest and just park them, and we'll come back there in the next morning. We'll regroup in the morning, come out with a plan about what we're going to do. We load our trucks, we go back out. Sometimes if we work far, well, we stay overnight in hotels and stuff like that if we have to. So we're not coming back all the time, depending on how far out our jobs are. We're doing one now up in Nantucket, so we'll be going up there, staying for a couple of days and come back. So we don't come back and forth to the yard all the time. It's only that, and we don't do any night work there at all whatsoever. It's all during the day.
When are people actually present there? When I say people, I mean the applicant's employees. When are they actually physically on the property?
We start, roughly around 7 o'clock. We all start to show up there around 7. I would say we're probably in full swing about 7:30 to gear up with the trucks, and once we get them all chained down, ready to go.
What time do you usually get back? I know that must vary from job to job.
We get back
Approximately.
somewhere between 5 to 7 at the latest, and that's unusual that we get there back that late. Usually it's around 6 at the latest on a normal workday.
So based on the testimony you just gave, it seems like from 7:30 in the morning to about 5 at night, there's nobody there.
Nobody there.
There's not going to be an office there?
There's no office there, no. Yeah, sometimes, it all depends on the traffic, how well we get treated coming back. Traffic can be a problem because we're running heavy equipment all the time, so we got to take the side roads.
Now, what type of machinery would you be storing on the property?
The only machines that we have there are just Bobcats that we use, which we take with us pretty much every day. If we don't use the machine, it stays here. We have a small backhoe that we have there that we bring out to a job site when we need it. If not, we take it to the yard, it stays there.
Now, the equipment you're going to have on the premises, do you service that? Do you perform maintenance on it, or how does that work?
No, when it comes to maintenance, like I said, we have all brand-new equipment. We have Peterbilts where we send to the Peterbilt dealer for maintenance. We have brand-new Ford trucks we send to the Ford company for maintenance. We have new Bobcats. We send out to the Bobcat dealer, and they do all our maintenance. They do our oil changes and stuff. So when we buy this stuff, we buy extended warranty, and about every 3-4 years, we turn this equipment over to newer equipment. So we don't do any of that maintenance on the job. The only time we would do anything is to fix a flat tire if we have a flat tire. That's what we do. That's what we'll do.
Do you drain or,
You'd be okay with no maintenance on site as a condition of any approval?
well, I think we'd be able, like as he indicated, they sometimes change flat tires. And,
I don't really think that's maintenance, but I'm talking about like oil changes, any kind of fluid.
do you dispose of any fluids on the property?
No, we have all brand-new equipment, and
Well, I mean, you have brand new equipment now, which is great, but this variance goes with the land in perpetuity, so maybe 15 years from now, the equipment won't be so new. So the board needs to understand if you're gonna do maintenance on-site or not, because it does factor into their opinion.
no, I understand. Like I said, for years, we always buy brand-new equipment. We carry the full warranties. We always send it out for service. So when we send it out for service, they do the grease and they do the oil changes, they do everything. So we have no intentions of changing oil because it doesn't help us being able to be efficient during the day, changing oils.
And you agree to that as a condition of approval, if the board looks favorably upon you? No maintenance on site, no
Use
mechanical
mic.
work on site? No maintenance or mechanical work on site? No oil changes of that nature?
No oil
Okay,
changes, no.
thank you.
One question that I have is, talk about the storage of all this equipment. How are you storing it? Is it inside, concrete pad? Is it on the ground?
We consider it as, I guess we'll call it a laydown yard. It's large steel beams and, a lot of oak blocking. So the blocking is palletized, and the steel beams are set up in rows where we actually, it's like dunnage. We'll have so many blocks on the ground, we'll put steel beams, then we'll put some more steel beams, we'll stack them. The stacks go probably about 6 foot tall, and they're different lengths and different size beams. So we have them pretty much around the perimeter, and the trucks are in the center, so we can grab what we need and put it right on a trailer and take it off, put it right back on the ground. So it's all about speed and efficiency of getting offloaded and loaded so we can get out.
Okay, but how about the trucks?
As far as,
Where are you parking them?
right in the middle.
And are they on concrete, on the
There-
ground?
There's no concrete, it's an open field, but we do have a concrete pad and an asphalt driveway by the house in front of the garage. And we put the trucks there, and I also have steel plates that we utilize sometimes, and I have steel plates down, and I put the trucks on, park them on the steel plates.
Charles, can you just give me a comment with that?
Yeah, so I think the question that Mr. Sinclementi is asking is, typically what the board will require, if it's going to be overnight storage of this equipment, having it on some type of concrete pad, so, if a diesel line drips or a hydraulic line breaks, you're not getting it just spilling right into, the ground water. So, this equipment storage area that you have shown on the plan, is that what you're listing as kind of for your Bobcats, your backhoes and stuff like that? Would it be limited to that area? Or is
Yeah,
it,
exactly. We also have steel plates, so we put steel plates down, and we park the equipment on steel plates too.
what
What does that mean, steel plates?
Road plates?
Sorry,
You-
That means nothing to me.
Yeah, well-
Sorry.
I
Are
think,
you talking road plates?
road plates.
yeah.
Okay.
Wait, but that means nothing to me, so you're gonna have to explain that to me, because we're gonna be responsible for
What-
resolution compliance, so I need to understand what that is.
What's the size of the plates?
We have different sizes. They're 8 foot, and they go up to 16 foot in length.
Okay, what's the thickness?
The thickness of the steel plates, 5/8, 3/4.
5/8, 3/4? So they're not road plates?
Well, they considered road plates in a sense to say that we use them for moving buildings and stuff like that.
Okay,
Road plates are usually 3/4 of 1 inch thick,
yes,
but our plates, they're pretty solid plates.
okay.
Okay, so let me just cut through all the technical language. We need to make sure that your equipment is on something other than dirt.
Okay.
And the plan that we have now has 3 rectangles located on them. One says equipment storage, one says steel girder storage, and the other says trailer something storage, because I can't read that. But at the end of the day, thank you, trailer cribbing storage, which also doesn't really mean much to me. But I need to understand specifically what the ground is going to be, what is going to be on the ground underneath every single thing you put out there. And so the plan that I have now does not tell me that. And it's important because you're going to be putting equipment, as Mr. Cunliffe indicated, that has the potential to drip and leak and what have you, and we want to make sure that that's contained, especially since you're in a residential zone. So, I appreciate the fact that, you speak a language that I don't understand, but at the end of the day, I need to understand exactly what you're doing, because they're going to look to me and say, Jennifer, do you have any comments? And I don't understand what you're doing.
Jennifer, we bifurcated the application.
I can't hear you.
We bifurcated the application. We're only here for use variance. So
I
that
understand
issue-
that, but the
That
use
issue's
var-
going to come up when we do this.
No, it's not. You're going to deal with it now, because you have to demonstrate no negative impact, and your impact on the ground and the surrounding land uses and the runoff is directly attributable to what is going to be underneath the things that you're proposing to store.
Okay.
So I'm not comfortable with deferring that to site plan. That's something that needs to be dealt with today.
And if I'm not mistaken, you just mentioned that you're going to have the steel beams, the wood blocking, and the cribs and everything in a circle, and then the trucks are going to be in the center of that on dirt. So when you're ready to move them, that's easy to pick up the equipment and move it out. So you're not putting them on any of these concrete pads. You just mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, that's what you mentioned.
Well, we bring the trucks out in the open to load them. But when we park them, we can park them on the asphalt for the evening. We don't have to have them out in the field, but we bring them out in the field to actually load them. And
That's
then-
not what you said originally, though.
Well, no,
You're gonna-
I did say we park them out there, but we do park them out there to load them. But what I'm saying is that we have the facility there to where we could take the trucks at the end of the day and bring them down to the bottom of the hill, and we could park them on the asphalt. If that is a concern, I have no problem with that. Or I have no problem with putting in a concrete pad just for the trucks to get parked on. If the town allows me to do that, I will do that.
So Wayne, that area that you have there, can that be reduced? I mean, you just have one big box that says equipment storage. Can you consolidate it to a quarter of the size to house all the equipment you have on there? So you're not putting in a, 100 by 50 concrete pad for, more than what you need?
Well, if we're worried about oil, which I totally understand, I could park the tractors and all the machinery on a concrete pad. The trailers don't leak anything, so I can always leave the trailers off the pad. They
Okay,
don't-
so that equipment and storage is inclusive of trailers and things like
Yes,
that?
when I'm
Okay.
talking about load, we always have a trailer with the truck. But we can always put the trailers out somewhere, because they don't leak. It's the trucks that we'd be concerned about.
Mr. Massa?
A quick question. You're in the house raising business. You just had Hurricane Sandy about 6 years ago, 7 years ago. Let's assume we have another hurricane, and we have a lot of activity where how many more employees are you going to have, and how much more equipment? Do you have any comment on that when you had Sandy?
Well, I've always had a lot of equipment, so, I don't need to go out and buy any more equipment I already have. I have plenty of equipment, we've raised many houses, and normally when I get a bigger crew, I have the crew go to the job site. There's no reason to come to the yard, because I don't need a full crew to load and unload trailers. I have the so-called skeleton crew that's been with you for a long time, and they know just how to load the trailers, how to tie them down. So if I'm going to be doing like we did Sandy, stuff like that, I have the guys go right to the job site, and we just show up there, have them show up there, we just do our job, and we come back. So there's no reason to bring a whole crew like that of a magnitude to a yard just to load a trailer and unload a trailer.
You're saying that the additional crew doesn't show up at your yard?
Not at all. They go right to the job site. We tell them where we're going to raise the house, and they show up at the job, and we raise the house. At the end of the day, they go home. We bring our trailers back to the yard, we offload, we reload, and we go back out.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Moretti?
The employee parking pad, what is that constructed of?
Asphalt.
So you're going to have your employees parked there all day long with maybe leaking cars and,
Well,
No.
when they show up, that's where they park every day. They park it on the asphalt.
that may have to be changed, I think, to concrete, no? Okay.
My pickup trucks also park on the asphalt.
Can you elaborate on how many spaces you have or how many cars you can fit into that employee parking area? So you have a box on the plan, but if you look at more current aerials, it looks like it's been expanded. You have some concrete and then expanded asphalt. Can Can you
Yeah,
give us a
between
number of how many spaces you can fit on there?
Between the concrete and the asphalt, I think we get about five cars, am I right, Mike? 5, 6 cars? I never really paid attention to it. 5 or 6 cars go on the asphalt, right? If I'm not mistaken.
have that many cars coming
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. Okay, how many employees will be on site, on this site?
On site,
Yeah, on this, at your yard here?
well, they're not there every day. They show up to help us load and unload, and they also drive the trucks out,
But how many employees
Mr. Chair, we
is that
asked
in-
the question, he said a maximum of 5.
Maximum 5?
Yep.
maximum.
Yeah.
The other question is, do you have hydraulics? Do you use hydraulic jacks in this?
Yes, we do.
Where do you store those?
They're on the truck.
They stay on the truck?
They stay on the truck.
Now, on the truck or the trailer?
No, on the truck.
Okay. Reservoirs for those, are they mechanical jacks or are they high-pressure hydraulic jacks?
High-pressure hydraulic.
Okay, is there a reservoir for that?
Yes, there is.
Is that on the truck also?
That's all part of the unit.
Okay, it is part of the unit. Okay, my next question is, and I know where Mr. San Clemente was going earlier, but you gotta realize, whatever this board approves as a use variance, it goes with the property. That means tomorrow, if it gets approved tomorrow, you could sell the property. We have to be able to have a resolution that limits the next person that buys that to what you're doing. If not, then they need a variance or a use change. So, you know, I know where Mr. San Clemente is going, and I understand what Ms. Beam is saying, but you gotta understand that. I know these questions, you know, not wanting to get into site plan at this time, but we have to as far as the use variance goes. Because we need to know what we're approving, because if this board looks favorably on it, you know, that goes with the property. So, you know, that's why these questions are being asked.
No, I totally understand it. I look at it this way. I run a very simple, straightforward business. It's a family business. You know, we're proud in what we have and the equipment that we maintain. And, you know, our intention coming here tonight is to be able to use the property for our purposes, not for resale purposes. We just want to be able to use the property as we see to make it work for our company.
But we have to look at the resale. We have to look at further down the road.
I understand.
Because that variance goes with that property.
Got it.
So-
Totally understand.
I have a question. You load up your trailers and trucks and everything with what you have here, but do you have deliveries to the site where you have a tractor trailer coming in? How's the steel brought in?
When you say how it's brought in, I misunderstood the question.
Well, I mean, when you purchase it, you're loading it up from your site. Is this the steel that you already have that you're just reloading?
Oh, I own it.
Okay, that's all I need. So you're not getting any kind of deliveries or anything?
Oh, no, not at all. There's no
Okay.
deliveries to my yard. Everything that's there, I own.
Okay, that's funny to know.
What's your intentions with the one-story frame dwelling?
I have no intentions for it other than just the facilities. That's all. If we use it for, you know, it's got a bathroom there and stuff like that. Just use it for that.
No one's going to be living in there?
No, I don't want nobody living there, no.
So you're using it as office space to run your operations out of that, or?
No, we have an office up in North Jersey. We have about 3 employees working there full-time up in North Jersey, so there's no reason for me to have an office down there. I just want to use it for, a facility for bathrooms, that's it.
Just by way of clarification, Wayne, there's somebody occupying the house right now, correct?
Well, that has
Tell
nothing
us
to do with
about
it.
that.
That has nothing, the person occupying the house is the brother of the fellow that I'm renting from. And he comes and he goes, and, I have no say over that.
Are you going to extend his ability to live there?
No, I don't,
That is
no. I
completely
want him
off.
off-site. Soon, if I'm able to obtain this piece of property the way I like to run my company, I don't want nobody living in that house.
Okay,
So there'll be no one ever living at that house?
I don't
That
want-
house
I
is,
don't- no.
He's gonna abandon the residential. Ask him if he's gonna abandon the residential
You're going to abandon the residential use? in
Well,
other
not saying
words.
abandon residential use, it's unfortunate, but the house is in need of repair. It hasn't been, it has not been maintained for a long time. The gentleman that used to live there was an older gentleman, and he was having physical difficulties, and he wasn't maintaining the house. So somewhere along the line, you know, I don't want anybody living there, but we are going to probably eventually put a roof on it to keep it, you know, intact. And we
But
want-
you're going to abandon the residential use?
I
Yes
would
or
s-
no?
Yeah, I would say yes. There's no
Are you
reason for us
sure? Because if you say yes, that goes in the resolution, and then you don't get to use it as a residential use again.
to understand. I haven't made that decision right now, whether or not we're going to use it for residential use or not.
That's
so
a very big issue in terms of a use variance application. So,
I really don't, like I said, I'm not certain. I mean, we may want to use, if I can, you know, save the house, I would use it for residential most likely, but then again, I'm not certain. I haven't thought that far out. I wasn't even thinking about a
well,
house.
I mean, I understand, but your professional is sitting here, and he needs to know, because his testimony needs to understand what that use is gonna be, and if you don't know,
Okay.
we may need to take a break for you guys to discuss it, because if he doesn't, you can't just say, I don't know, maybe. That's not gonna be, that's not enough. This is a D1 use variance, which is a huge burden statutorily, and the fact that if there's a residential use there, and now you're putting heavy equipment on there, and how the board views that combination may change their disposition to your application. It may not, I don't know, but he's gonna have to justify it. And so you need to know yes or no. It can't be maybe.
Mr. Landis, you want to take a 5-minute break and discuss that with your
Yeah, please.
witnesses? Mr. Chair, Mr. San Clemente?
Yes, well, let's, the board take a 5-minute break. You do a discussion of this residential issue, which has come up now.
The board will now recess.
Yes.
The zoning board will now reconvene.
All right, Mr. Landis?
Yes, the applicant has discussed it with his experts, and we've elected not to pursue retaining the residents.
You will not pursue, okay.
Is that correct, Wayne?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, you can continue.
If I could just continue that, the intention would be just to maintain it for facilities, and not for residential purposes.
Matt, is that okay to have a residence but not have a residence?
It's pretty enforceable because it'll be pretty easy to tell if somebody's living there, and if it is, it would be in direct contradiction to the resolution. So from an enforcement standpoint, it's not the cleanest and maybe not the most orthodox way go about it, but we would be able to enforce it.
Okay. Okay, you continue.
I have no further questions for Mr. Yeruzzi.
Okay. So before we start with Mr. Pierce, Matt, could you just give us a background of what's going on with this application?
Yeah, there really isn't too much. One of my code inspectors was in the area doing an inspection on another property, observed construction material on the property, pretty much what we've heard about vehicles, steel beams, different things like that, and issued a violation for, pretty much running a construction yard on a residential property. We did go to court. We have settled the matter. This application seeks to really abate our violation. If it gets approved, then, we would be relying on the resolution going forward. So there really isn't a long history. This isn't one that went back and forth for months or years like some of our others. This is just taken a while to get here, but mostly just because of the timing of the process. Everything is pretty straightforward here.
Okay.
I forgot, how long has it been used
Go
like
ahead,
this?
you're gonna ask.
Excuse me, how long has this property been used by you in this capacity?
We've been there for about a year, I'd say.
So prior to that, Matt, what was the property used for prior to that? Was it a construction site? Was
No, we understood it to be a residential use before that.
it residential use, so he's only been there a year renting it, and he's looking to change it?
It's been maybe 2 years.
2 years,
Yeah,
well,
our violation was dated almost 2 years to the day today, so it was, this has been used like this for at least 2 years. More than 2 years, I'm sorry. February 2017 was our violation.
Yes, Mr. Yes.
When you moved on the property, did you check this all out as to what was permitted and what was not permitted?
When I went to contract with the owner, there was a gentleman who lived there. He was a contractor, and he had construction equipment there. So they said that I could go ahead and utilize the yard, and the gentleman was going to live there until he passed away. And unfortunately, about 3 months later, if I'm bad with dates, he did pass away. And his equipment is still on site. So we just on the impression that, we had the green light to do that until we started looking into purchasing the property. And when we found out that we have to go before the board, and this is where we are today.
So was a construction facility prior to that
No, it was a house.
with the house? So you
It
had
was just a house.
just a house, no construction?
There's no history of other approvals for this site, so anything else that was going on like that was, not known to the township.
Yes.
You're saying his equipment is still there?
That's correct.
What does that compose of? What,
He has an old backhoe still there, sitting there. He has old pickup trucks still there. He has some old steel beams. So he was a contractor. And
what is the condition of that equipment?
it's just sitting there old, just old trucks.
Can it be removed from the site?
I didn't want to remove it to the site because, I don't own that equipment. It still belongs to the owner that I'm renting the property from. But as soon as, if I obtain the property and stuff like that, that equipment's going. I have no right to take that off. I don't own the property in order for me to have the right to take that equipment off the property.
Okay. Proceed, Mr. Landis.
Thank you. The applicant will call as its second witness, already sworn, Michael Pierce. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to introduce Mr. Pierce. He's an expert is both in the field of professional planning and engineering. He has testified, he advises me before this board previously, although apparently it's been a couple of years since he's been here. So you may want to hear this. You want me just
Yeah, we can just qualify him again.
Mr. Pierce, you've been sworn. Would you please give the board some knowledge about your education, licensure, jobs you've held over the years?
Certainly. My name is Michael Pierce. I'm a professional engineer licensed in the state of New Jersey and Pennsylvania. I'm also a licensed professional planner in New Jersey and a registered architect in New Jersey. I am the principal of Pierce Engineering. I've been practicing as a consulting engineer and architect since 1980. I appeared before the Howell Zoning Board a number of years back for a client in Howell Township. I've also appeared before numerous other planning and zoning boards throughout New Jersey and Pennsylvania.
And your educational background?
I have 2 degrees from Lehigh University.
Thank you. We accept your credentials.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Landis.
He's been accepted as both a planner
Yes.
and an engineer.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Pierce, if you would describe the property which is the subject of this application.
Well, the property is approximately 6 1/3 acres. It's rather long and thin, as you can see from the plan, and fairly narrow for the depth of the property. There is a residence roughly at the center of the property, quite far from the road. The front of the property is heavily wooded, so you cannot see the residence from Herbertsville Road. And there's a small barn on the property. The prior resident of the property, let me also add that I'm very familiar with this property, having lived at the property to the south since 1973. I knew the prior resident of the property. His name was Jack Fulcher. He was a contractor, although he really didn't do, he parked his equipment on the property. He did commercial construction, commercial buildings, but he really didn't, his property was used pretty much. He had a little wood shop in his barn. He did have a backhoe. He had a van trailer. You know, he did have some equipment there, but for the most part, it was his residence. And he lived there, I would say, at least 25 years or so. The property adjoins basically I'll refer to it as the gorilla on the block, which is the Blewett recycling facility. Prior to Mr. Blewett purchasing it, used to be back in the 70s and 80s, it was Osborne's antique car museum. It was a junkyard. And Mr. Blewett purchased the Osborne yard and incorporated it into his operation. And then just recently, he received approval to use it as a contractor storage yard. This property has been a residence, as far as I can remember, since 1973. It hasn't really changed much. It's pretty much the way it was back then. It's lightly wooded. The boundary with the Blewett property is a concrete wall. That's changed over the years. At one point, it was telephone poles with sheet metal. Now, Mr. Blewett has installed precast concrete blocks. There's really not much paving on the property. There is whatever you see on the plan, the sketch plat. There is unpaved road coming in from Herbertsville Road.
Ray, just for clarification, how is the property situated with regard to the Blewett property?
It's immediately adjacent to the Blewett property. So the northern boundary is contiguous with the Blewett contractor's yard.
And they're both in the ARE2 zone?
Correct. Blewett's property is obviously pre-existing non-conforming.
What lot is Blewett's?
Lot 8.
8?
Actually 8 and also 9.
What's 7?
Oh, 7 is also, the original Osborne property was 7 and 8.
Okay.
And that came out of the original, I actually am familiar with can go back to the 1800s as far as the titles of the property. The Osborne property used to be part of a 400-acre survey return that goes back to 1800. That was owned by Abraham Osborne and Ananiah Gifford. Abraham Osborne and Ananiah Gifford were involved with James P. Allaire, who basically ran the ironworks at Allaire. So having worked in the area, I got an opportunity to review the title work. The Osborne property was the northern range of that 400-acre survey return. Obviously Blewett purchased that, and that's now the contractor's yard.
Mr. Pierce, are you the owner of Lot 5?
I am.
Okay, so what's your property used for?
Residential and agricultural.
Okay. Is there like a buffer between the two properties?
No. To the extent of my property is fairly wooded along that property, but there is a wire fence which is on mine. It's a wire fence that we've had there since the 70s. It's been replaced a couple times, but there's not a tremendous buffer on there. That's one thing that obviously I would be interested in, is to maintain a buffer, because as a planner, the very important thing is to provide a buffer between two differing uses. I can see the Blewett fence across the property because the property is fairly narrow.
Yeah.
And I can see so visually, I can see the Blewett fence. I would like to see, when and if we get down to site, I would like to see a vegetative buffer. That would make me the happiest as the adjoining property owner.
Well, I've got a question. You drew the sketch, correct?
I did.
Okay, you are aware, are you Q form?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you're aware that there's a 50-foot buffer requirement, right?
Yes.
It's only showing a 30-foot.
Well, you can't. No, that's only a setback. That's not showing a buffer.
Okay, so that's not your buffer.
Correct.
Okay, my question would be,
Where's going to be the buffer?
okay, I see you have a setback against Blewett, but if this is a variance, you wouldn't need a setback other than any structures would be the height of the structure against Blewett's property because it's commercial to commercial.
Those setbacks are for the ARE2 zone, which I'm showing the property presently is ARE2 zone.
Okay, so this is
So that's
not-
why that's shown. This application is not for site, it's just for use.
Okay.
This is not a site plan.
Okay,
It's a sketch plat.
okay. Jim,
But we would,
let me ask Jim a couple of questions. Okay, this is basically hypotheticals, which I do not like hypotheticals, but if they abandon the residential use on the property, they do not have, there's not a buffer requirement.
Yes, there is.
No, I know to the lot 5, but to the Blewett property, there wouldn't,
Yes, there would, because our ordinance says residential use or zone. And Blewett is a residentially zoned piece of property. Now, do I think they need to buffer from Blewett? I certainly do not. That would be justification for relief, but technically, the standard is use or zone.
okay,
And that is a residentially zoned piece of property.
okay, so.
But it hasn't been used residentially forever.
No, I understand that.
So I would take no exception on that side of the property to have no buffer whatsoever, because I don't know really what you're buffering,
Okay,
honestly. But I do think from the south, now, let me just preface this by saying, our ordinance requires 50 feet. The lot is only 102 feet wide. So you have a 50-foot buffer on the one side and a 50-foot buffer on the other side, there's 2 feet for some kind of
exactly,
development.
that's what
So
I'm
I
saying.
understand the hardship involved based upon the shape of the lot. And even the 30-foot setback, the driveway is located within that area as well. So I would just say, I would defer the buffer issue to site plan, but I would work very closely with the CTE for the board, who's Shari Spiro from CME Associates, to come up with some kind of adequate buffering along, what is that, south?
The southern
East,
boundary.
south, the coincident lot line with lot 5. Do I think they're gonna get 50 feet? No, because there's structures within 50 feet. But it would be nice to show some kind of landscaping and a different kind of fence that would provide a separation between the residential use that's immediately adjacent and this use, should you guys act favorably on the use variance. So, knowing that the professional is here, the resident is here, the applicant is here, and this is just for use only, that I would defer the buffer issue to site plan, because they're gonna need a variance for the buffer. It's just a matter of how they mitigate that, which would be a site plan issue.
Okay.
So I'd be okay with deferring that to site plan.
Okay,
May I add something? It might clarify things.
Yeah, they don't comply.
May I?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
required.
The property does have a number of disadvantages if you were to look at use of this property as ARE2. Obviously, we have visual problems with the Blewett property. It's a fairly ugly concrete wall. So anybody that would think of using this property being the narrow, long, thin property, you have to really ask, are they going to want to have a nice residence
200 feet.
on this long, narrow property next to Blewett's commercial operation? And also, let me throw this in. The Blewett family are very nice neighbors, even though they have a very rough business. I think that Jack Fulcher was a very good neighbor. He obviously did not mind living next to the Osborne property. But that is one of the disadvantages of this property as far as looking at a residential property. So I think that going to somewhat of a commercial, but a low-intensity commercial use is sort of suited for this property. The buffer, I think, is a very valid concern that I have as the neighbor to the south. I mean, obviously, I'm looking at a residence now. Well, I would like to have not just a buffer for this property, but it's also going to be the same way a buffer to the Blewett property. So that would certainly make me happy. But I think the problems, the special conditions that this lot has lends itself to somewhat of a scaled-down commercial use. I am familiar with Mr. Yarusi's business. I've worked with Mr. Yarusi on projects. I do know he's fairly comfortable with his operation. He needs a yard to store his timbers, which are nothing but untreated oak timbers. They're stacked neatly in cribs and stored just on the soil. Steel beams, again, they're just steel beams sitting on oak dunnage. I happen to have done a lot of engineering work for Arnold Steel. In fact, I appeared before the zoning board back in the 80s for Arnold Steel when they were doing parking lot and they were upgrading their facilities. I represented Arnold Steel. I'm familiar with stormwater management regulations. I did the stormwater management plan for Arnold Steel. It's a similar operation of steel beams sitting on the ground, you know, but so that's why I feel that this is a fairly light commercial use for the property. And I think that there are those limitations of the property as is that would make it really not too useful for the residential, agricultural, residential estate use.
Mr. Massa?
Quick question.
Certainly.
How big is your lot next door?
28 acres.
Thank you.
Mr. Pierce, you've already started testifying about it, but could you give some testimony about the positive and negative criteria as they pertain to this application?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I'm asking him to provide us with some testimony about the positive and negative criteria relevant to the application.
Planning testimony.
Well, as I mentioned, the positive of the application is that it's a fairly light use of the property. In terms of traffic, ingress, egress, there's very little traffic. I'm familiar with when the crew's coming in, going out. Mr. Yarusi gave his schedule, and I've got to say that for the most part, that is the schedule. You know, 7 o'clock, the guys are loading the trucks up and pulling out. And then 5, 6, 7 o'clock, depending upon where they're working, I'll hear the trucks coming in. Trucks get parked, guys go home. And so there's not a lot of commotion during the day. I can hear the Blewett operation every day. You know, well, the scrapyard only works till 2 o'clock, but occasionally I'll hear machinery after that. I'm sort of used to it. But as far as Mr. Yarusi's operation, it's just that. It's storage of his equipment, storage of his trucks, and there's a certain amount of effort loading the trucks. You know, this job needs this type of equipment, so many cribs, so many beams, but that's it. Trucks get loaded, they go out, they go to wherever they're doing their house lift or building move. And then they come back at the end of the day. So in my opinion, that's a fairly light, limited commercial use of the property. And then obviously the downside of the property of having it as a residence, I've already mentioned that's certainly a limiting factor for the property. You know, who wants to live right next to that ugly concrete block wall?
Mr. Chair, can I ask just a couple questions?
Sure, go ahead.
So, for a D1 variance, there are several prongs, right? So let me just ask you a couple questions. In terms of site suitability, you need to demonstrate that the site is particularly suited for the proposed use. Would you say that its location on Herbertsville Road, immediately adjacent to the Blewett facility, and other than your site being located immediately adjacent, there's limited residential development surrounding this property, would make this particularly suited for this commercial use?
Correct.
And then, as far as the positive criteria goes, would you think that this was appropriate development at appropriate location? Similarly, based upon the location of the Blewett facility on Lot 7 and 8, and located along Herbertsville Road, that this is appropriate development located at appropriate location?
Yes, it is. For the nature of traffic on Herbertsville Road.
Right.
It is, Herbertsville Road already has, access for heavy equipment, heavy trucks. It's not a narrow cul-de-sac residential street that we're asking for a somewhat limited commercial use. It has adequate access to a major thoroughfare.
Plus, the limited nature of the proposed use would make it more appropriate than something that was a little higher intense?
Absolutely, yes, yes.
And then on the negative side, would you say that there is a negative impact to the surrounding land uses?
I don't see, as far as using it as this commercial, the proposed commercial use.
Correct.
I don't really see any negative
Especially,
for this property under the conditions that I previously mentioned.
especially given the fact that there is going to be some additional buffering then between the residential lot and this lot, and then ultimately Blewett's lot.
Correct. And I've discussed this, when I first started with the plan, I discussed it with Jack Mallon, and that was really, Jack asked me, he said, well, how would you handle this property? And I said, visual buffer on the south boundary.
Right.
And that's, and I said, that's it. But it really does lend itself for this use. And that, speaking as a professional engineer and a planner.
And then the last question is, do you see a negative impact to the zone plan and zoning ordinance by allowing a use of this nature at this location?
No, I don't, because of the pre-existing non-conforming use of the Blewett operation. As I mentioned, I refer to as the Big Gorilla. I don't know how long that operation is going to be there. Like I said, they're good neighbors, and I think they manage their operation well. They've certainly, over the last 45 years, I think the visual impact from Herbertsville Road has been improved. And also, the Blewetts live in the front of their properties. So they're comfortable with their surroundings. They want it to look nice. John Blewett has his farm at the north end of his property. I think the neighborhood has really been bettered with the Blewetts upgrading their property. I think it's a nice. It really doesn't. It looks so much better than it did 35 years ago.
So, Mr. Chair, I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you. Charles, any other
Yeah, I would
questions?
just say if, the board does rule favorably on this, I just want to make some notes on items that the applicant should address for the site plan. The Fire Bureau noted about the existing access drive. It's very narrow. It's 10, 11 feet in some spaces, and it's very close to the residential dwelling on the property. They typically require 20-foot wide, 13.5-foot clearance. There are a lot of trees, so obviously make sure that there's a clear travel way. It also needs to be able to support a fire truck. Some type of applications where it's like landscaping uses, board has permitted 8 inches of gravel over like a fabric, something like this where you have heavy vehicles coming in and out of here. I think it needs something more substantial like, a pavement section, asphalt pavement section. Some of your locations for your storage areas, a trailer storage area in the front, it's in the front yard. It's also in the setback. It seems like you got a lot of area behind the residential dwelling and the 2-story frame building to put that. Also, the steel girder storage, you're within the 30-foot setback on the side yard there. We're talking about moving it 15 feet, 10 feet to get it out of there. I think that can easily be achieved. I will also note it's on a county road. You're going to have to submit an application to Monmouth County Planning Board. They are going to require right-of-way dedication or road-of-way easement along the frontage there. We're not talking about a lot there. It might be 3 to 5 feet, but that'll be a requirement from them. And then that's pretty much I have right there. That's it, yep.
Charles?
Yeah.
Okay, against the bluet wall, couldn't he go all the way up there via waiver or something? That he could utilize that area over there? Because you got a bluet wall there, 8-foot bluet wall.
Certainly could. It's, would be the board's granting of that. I just want to keep in mind that whatever they grant is going to go with the property for years on end. So if that property to the north were to change someday into something else, however unlikely it may be, you now have stuff being permitted to store like with a zero setback,
I would say they're gonna have to justify it at site plan.
Okay.
And then with respect to the location in the front yard, I mean, obviously that's seriously discouraged. However, as the testimony was presented, you can't even see the house from the road.
Yeah.
So if the applicant chooses to move forward, leaving that there, which I would not encourage, but if they do, I would highly encourage you to bring photographs from the road into the site, because what I don't want is to see trailer storage off of the road. That would be absolutely detrimental. So either move it or come up with, I would highly encourage you to reach out to Shari, because she's excellent, and she will evaluate the quality of those woodlands, and if anything needs to be supplemented or what have you. She'll meet you out there on the site, she'll take a look at everything, but you're definitely gonna need at least photographs from Herbertsville Road into the site to show that trailer location, if you're not able to move it. If you are, you should just move it. But if you can't, you have to show that you can't see it. And I would definitely work with her to make sure that whatever is out there, if it needs to be supplemented or what have you, take place, because having that visible from the road is not something that this board is ever
Well, I
allowed.
think the comment about front yard being in front of the residence, if it's no longer a residence, it's,
I understand that, so I would encourage the photographs from
Yeah,
Herbertsville
yeah.
Road, and definitely work with Shari to make sure that whatever's out there from a vegetation standpoint, she feels is adequate, because
it's a mixed pine, oak forest, and
you're
what
talking
it
to the
is
wrong
is it's
person.
it's-
Whoop.
Okay.
Wait, talk to her, because what they're gonna say is, are you okay with it? And if
Okay.
she says yes, then that's what they'll go with.
I was going to say, it's indigenous to the area.
Yeah, so she'll go out there, she'll meet with you, she'll let you know how she feels about it.
Okay.
Once you start talking about species, that's it for me. So, I would recommend that anyway,
Yeah.
because if you're gonna work with her on the buffer, she'll put together some nice information for you.
Absolutely. In fact, that's why I really would not want to see a grand driveway going in. As far as the comments on the fire, Mr. Urusi's trucks are probably heavier than any fire apparatus that would come out onto the site. So,
is something that this board
so-
really willing to.
Well, I have a question regarding that. And Charles,
Since it's not paved.
that's not a paved road.
No, not right now. It says it's unpaved on a plan.
So if that could be moved towards the Blewett side, then that south side can be buffered, planted with sherry. And now you don't, and you can possibly mitigate the fire truck issue that you could have. So if you can move that driveway to the north side.
Yeah, I mean, it can be done, it's just a matter of, anytime there's something existing, you try to utilize what's there just because it's, less work and, the ground has already been driven over for years, so it's going to have some sort of structural stability to it. So it can be moved, and it certainly, like you stated, would, alleviate the buffer issue on the south side of the property there.
Yeah, and then you may have, or get rid of that fire truck issue also.
Yeah.
Because
sure
it's
enough.
on the north side, which,
At the end of the day, if the board is going to require them to pave it with asphalt for them to move it, it's not going to be much extra work,
yeah.
I have a question. Wouldn't the wooded area you're talking about, maybe cutting that out a little to make, do you think that's worth doing as opposed to leaving the woods there?
But they're gonna, I like what Mike's saying, because you're gonna have to improve this roadway, so you're gonna open it up
Okay.
to improve it, so now you're in the buffer, and you're not gonna be able to close the visual sight. You
Okay.
follow what I'm saying? You're gonna be able to see down, and you're not gonna be able to buffer this area right here. Yeah, you're gonna have the woods here, but the whole thing is offer this from this.
Yeah, now that,
Doing the site plan tonight?
No, no,
no,
Yeah,
no. But
Mr.
we're
San
trying-
Clemente and Mr. Chairman, I just, want to keep in mind that, relocating the road is also going to probably require some tree removal. So,
But it's not necessary right now.
yeah.
Yeah, that was my point.
I mean, the applicant testified that that woodland in the front is heavy enough that we can't see the house from the road.
I know, but if you restructure that road to make it fire truck
Yeah?
passable, you're gonna be cleaning that road up.
Only if you could go to the south with it.
What's that?
You could go to the south with it. You don't need to cut the trees down.
No, but what I'm saying, you're gonna be cleaning it up, because if it's a narrow road right now, just big enough to get a truck in there, a tractor
Well, I mean,
trailer.
in fairness to the applicant, he's been using the site for 2 years. So
I
if there was an
understand.
issue getting trucks back, we probably would know about it. But I just want to stop this conversation because this is
Yeah.
really a site plan issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, this is just kind of like think about this for the future kind
Yeah.
of situation. It's really not part of this application.
May I add, when I prepare a site plan, as I mentioned before, I discussed this project with Jack Mallon. I know Jack, and my standard procedure, when I do a design that's going to be going for a board approval, I like to sit down with the professional and talk about the project. And I always get helpful insight about where the board's thought process happens to be. Jack mentioned certain things that the zoning board likes to see. That's helpful to me as the design professional, because that way I can prepare a plan that it's not going to be a surprise to the board. The board's going to say, this is what we like to see, and I get that information from your professionals. So that's the way I like to work. I have for 39 years, hopefully another 39 years. But I certainly want a plan that the board is happy with, that the neighborhood is happy with, and that my client is happy with. That's ultimately, that's a win-win, and that's what we try to do.
Just so I understand this, we're looking at use variance tonight for what this gentleman is doing. And then, are they coming back here for a site?
Yes.
So
For
just so I'm
site plan.
clear, are
Oh, and you're not voting tonight, correct?
we voting on, what are we voting?
Use?
That's up to them.
Mr. Landis, would you want to vote tonight?
Do you want to take a couple seconds to talk about it?
I think it's all fresh in our minds. We only have 5 people. Hey, Mike?
I think I might not be able to,
Yeah.
because I came in after the case
I
already
think this whole thing
Yeah,
is
no,
fresh in
try
our
to hold
minds.
off as long as possible.
I think so.
I think we should take a vote.
I'm going to
Say yes.
I'm going to recommend one thing, just so that the applicant knows that we have very limited time left with the board. You know, Mr. Chairman, for years I say no straw poll voting, but seeing no opposition here which I'm sure you're open to the public.
well, the only opposition is sitting right there.
Right, and that's what I mean. So he's going to testify as the public in a moment. So if there's no objection, and council, if you have no objection, I just want to see a show of hands on a straw vote. Is there anyone?
Well, I can't vote.
I know you can't. There's 5 members. Any objection to a straw vote? Mr.
I have no
San Clemente?
objection.
Okay,
I have no objection
all right.
to it.
I mean, just in terms of, just what's in terms of, in front of you is the use variance. Is there anyone opposed to that tonight? Who is a voting member? They're coming back, probably what, Matt, within 90 days? There's some work to be done here. But at least this way, they'll have something to leave with tonight.
Okay.
And then they have the direction to go forward. Without really calling for a straw vote, I really don't see any objections up there. So I think I would advise that then we should continue, and then if there's no further testimony, Mr. San Clemente, then I think what we'll do then is close this portion, open it to the public, and I'm sure the planner will stand up as a member of the public and give his approval. But in any event, again, it's just in terms of trying to move it along.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so is there anything further, Mr. Landis? Anything from the board? Professionals, anything else? Need a motion to open to public?
Make a motion to open to public.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Moretti, second by Mr. Hughes, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? None? Is there anyone in the public wishing to make comments, questions? Seeing none? Need a motion to close?
I'll make a motion to close.
I second it.
Motion by Mr. Hughes, second by Mr. Moretti, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
And
Quick question.
just,
Hold
So
on,
these people
hold on.
have direction from us at this point
right.
that I'm reading?
Yes.
Thank you.
Just want to put on the record that whoever offers the motion, whatever the motion is, you need 5 affirmative votes to approve. This is a use variance, and remember, it's a bifurcated, which means that the applicant, should the board look favorably upon the application, will return for full site plan. And you've heard a lot of representations go back and forth, and they have the direction as to which way to go. So, but just in terms of the use variance, 5 affirmative votes are needed for approval. And of course, Chairman, you will not be able to vote
Correct.
this evening. Thank you.
Okay, so what is the board's decision?
I'm in favor of it. I would move
No,
it.
we need a motion.
I move it.
Somebody wants to move it?
Okay, Mr. Massa.
Move it?
Motion by Mr. Massa,
I'll second that.
That's to approve, correct, Mr. Massa?
Yes, that is to approve.
and second by Mr. Hughes.
Yes, sir.
We have a roll call, Eileen?
Yes, you may. Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Mr. Massa.
Yes.
Mr. Mertens.
Yes.
Mr. Moretti.
Yes, with all the regulations and stipulations we mentioned to be fulfilled before we do the site plan.
Thank you. And Vice Chairman, Mr. San Clemente.
Yes, with the fact that this is in an area which is commercial, even though it is zone residential with Blewett there, and the characteristics of the lot, I vote yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Right, he will, but that's true.
He has to apply for site plan. He didn't apply for site plan.
So you'll have to renotice again for your site plan application. Do you have an idea, Mr. Price, how long it would take? I mean, just realistically to try to get an idea, so that,
It's tough to say. I'd like to sit down with the professionals
I understand.
and work out,
because we're booked
and
out,
also with my client.
right, just to give you an
We're booked
idea.
through June.
Right, so
but
is that,
even if your application
I-
came in today,
I-
you wouldn't be deemed complete till the
Yeah,
end of May.
no, I certainly need more time than that,
that's fine.
yeah,
Just to let you know, you're probably looking at summertime somewhere in there.
yeah. We're, yeah, it's gonna take some, this is a sketch plat. When I go to
Understood.
a site plan, it's a lot more work.
I understood, so you can be working with Charlie,
Correct,
Jack's protege.
correct.
Hey,
Maybe we
thank
can
you.
get Jack out of retirement.
No, I don't think so.
He likes
Any
his
Monday night,
nights.
any Monday night, you're welcome to come here and watch on the LNO application.
Keep going?
We need a break.
Yeah. Chair, I mean, we have been 2 years on this property with a violation, so I would like some sort of time frame, some idea to move it forward, because I just don't want it to sit out there any much longer. So is 90 days for an application reasonable? I
It's,
mean,
it.
120?
Yeah, 90's tough, yeah.
Would 120 be
Yeah.
acceptable? I mean, and I don't go issuing tickets at 91 days. It's show good faith. If you're 75, 80% there, obviously I give extensions and everything. I just want to make sure this keeps moving.
Honestly, the way I see in terms of workload and put it together, I would say like by September, if that's okay. Are we okay there? What?
September 15th, maybe? So September 15th, mid-September?
Is that okay, September?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
September 15th. You only have
To have
two
the
meetings
application
then.
filed,
You know,
correct?
'cause
September 9th and
everything
September
takes longer
23rd.
these days, you know. 30 years ago, land use was a lot different.
Is it because we were younger or the rules got tougher?
Probably a combination. Though the rules are tougher.
They are, yeah. We're good?
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody need?
Yeah, see? Thank you.
Okay.
Eileen, we're going to take a 5-minute break,
10.
10-minute break.
Okay. The board will now recess. The zoning board will now reconvene.
All right, the next application is case number BA 18-37, CTC Landscaping. Use variance minus site plan, application of CTC Landscaping as applicant, and Ellen Tilly as owner seeking use variance and minor site plan approval with no proposed construction or demolition to operate a landscaping company on premises known as Block 46, Lot 32.01, 24 Herbertsville Road, expiration June 22nd, 2019. Good evening.
Good evening. Members of the board, Scott Keneally, I'm the attorney for the applicant CTC Landscaping. Tonight, I'd like to present the testimony of Christopher Campanelli on behalf of CT Landscaping, as well as Patrick Ward. He is a professional engineer and a professional planner, and he prepared the plan which is before the members of the board.
Okay.
Witnesses to stand, please, and I'll swear them in. Swear the testimony you give this evening be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
So starting with you, Mr. Campanelli, can you state your name and spell your last name?
Chris Campanelli, Campanelli.
Patrick Ward, WARD, from Insight.
Very good. The witnesses are sworn.
Thank you.
Members of the board, we're here tonight on a use variance and site plan application for a site currently owned by the Tilly family. I'd just like to begin with, I know there are a number of questions in the board review letter, so I'd like to start with Mr. Campanelli to describe what it is he plans to do at the site if his application is approved. Mr. Campanelli, you are the owner of CTC Landscaping?
Correct.
Okay. Could you tell the board what CTC Landscaping is? What do you do?
We do lawn maintenance and landscaping.
Okay. Where do you do that? Where is your business? Where do you go?
We operate in Wall, Manasquan, Brielle areas.
And what kind of customers do you have?
We have a lot of high-end customers for lawn maintenance.
Okay. What percentage of your work is like residential or commercial?
I would say 90% residential, 10% commercial.
Okay. And is that work seasonal or is it year-round?
It's seasonal.
Okay. Is it involve cutting lawns, edging lawns, blowing lawns, things of that
Correct,
nature?
yes.
How many employees do you have during your peak operation?
Our peak is about 15.
Okay. And is that the same throughout the year?
No.
So how many employees do you have in the wintertime?
We have about 2.
Okay. Are you in the business of fertilizing?
We do not have a pesticide license. We sub all that out.
Okay.
No fertilizing.
And so your work is lawn care?
Correct.
Okay. Now, how many vehicles do you use for that business, and what types of vehicles do you have?
We have a total of 9 vehicles. We have 3 pickup trucks, 3 rack bodies, and 2 mason trucks.
Excuse me, a rack body?
Rack body dump. They're like a landscape rack body.
Okay.
And do you have other equipment that you hook up to
to those vehicles?
Yes, we have trailers, enclosed trailers, open trailers.
Okay. Could you explain your operation? You currently
How
are,
many trailers?
We have about 15 trailers.
They'll all be on this site?
Correct.
Any other type of equipment?
I have a Bobcat, I have a mini excavator, and I have a mule, like a utility vehicle for the farm.
It's a military type vehicle,
It's like a
utility vehicle,
yeah.
yes.
Do you contemplate getting a pesticide license?
Not at all.
You don't?
Nope. I've been doing this for about over 25 years. I always sub it out.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is that the herbicide and pesticides?
Everything, Roundup, we don't do it.
Okay. Grass clippings, do you bring them back to this site?
We don't. We have a place where we dump them at Monmouth County Reclamation Center. We have a DEP number for that.
Wood, if you,
We don't do firewood.
shrubs or anything?
I'm sorry?
Shrubs or stuff like that?
No, we dump those at Mazza Reclamation Center
Okay.
out in,
Do you have any roll-offs?
we do not. We don't have anything with like CDL. They're all smaller trucks.
Can you explain, do all your vehicles, are all your pickups there at night?
The foremans drive their pickups home, 3 of them, and they pick up the guys in the morning.
They pick them up on their way to work?
Correct.
And at this site, what do you envision your employees doing when they come to the site?
Getting ready for work, staying there for about a half hour, getting the list ready for the day, and then leave.
Okay. And what type of time frame are those employees coming on the site and leaving?
Anywhere from 7 to 5.
How many days a week?
5, possibly 6, weather depending.
Okay. And seasonal?
Seasonal, yes.
Scott, can I just clarify that? So the foreman picks them up, the employees at home, and then brings them to the site, they prep, and then they leave? So there's no, like, employee vehicles coming to
There
this?
are some employee vehicles, maybe like 2 or 3 at a time.
2 or 3? Okay.
It depends,
But the lion's share of your employees get picked up by the foreman.
Correct, yep,
We'll assume that they don't have licenses.
yes.
And the pickup trucks that you have go home with the foreman at night?
Correct.
And the
One
trailer-
question, just, you anticipate that schedule being changed in any way, or is it going to stay that way?
It stays the same like that. We've been working like that for years.
Okay.
What do you envision for this site in terms of the other uses on the site?
Selling nursery products, like plants and stuff.
Okay. And is that use currently on the site, and how does that relate to what you plan to do?
It's hand in hand. It's nursery product, planting we can use for our jobs.
Okay. And does that currently exist on the site, on a portion of the site?
It does.
I do have for the board some aerials as well as some pictures that might be helpful.
Council, is what's on the board, what is going to be handed out?
No, the board is photographs taken of the site before
Okay.
and after, some recent photos.
All right.
And the handout is just a Google aerial of the site.
All right, well, let's mark your board then. Your next number is A7, and I'll have, if you can have your witness identify that, and then your handout will be A8.
I got a question while they're doing that.
A7 is, right.
And can we pass that to the members so they can just look this here, so they can look at it? Then you can,
Is he still going to maintain retail or wholesale?
You want to ask him? Yeah.
Claiborne, because he made that statement.
No, he didn't, no.
Now, Mr. Campanelli, while this is going on,
Let the attorney, let the attorney get.
yeah. Okay. If you can just go into more detail between your business now and you want to start selling, is this retail, selling plants, wholesale? Could you just describe in detail what's going on?
Retail on a smaller version. I would like to get that farm market up to par again, just kind of been run into the ground.
What do you mean again?
Like, it's just existing, it's just kind of,
Run
not too
down.
appealing from the road. I want to clean the place up,
Okay.
make it very presentable, you know, like an old-time farm market, and that's my goal.
The site
And-
currently has a farm
It
market.
does have a farm market on it as we speak, yeah.
And it currently has a nursery
It has a nursery, yes,
and it has an area that's farmed.
correct.
And you intend to preserve all three of those?
Yes,
Okay. And then you will also have wholesale going on?
selling a nursery product, yes, keep it going.
Okay.
Are you doing this now?
No,
The
So,
current owner?
current owner is right now.
Okay, you're gonna buy the property or rent?
I'm gonna buy the property. I've been cleaning the property up, I made that poster.
So just a little bit of history to this. Mr. Campanelli has been pretty much above board from the beginning. Property went for sale, and I believe in dealing with the Realtor, we realized that there was several businesses running out of this garage illegally. Township had no idea about it. Mr. Campanelli is not one of them. He is looking to move into the site and do this right. He came to a concept plan meeting with the professionals several months ago, so he's been going about this in absolutely the right way. The existing businesses, from what we understand, are all moved off the site. Those were the illegal ones. This is not right now, so just for the board's.
And the nursery and the farm stand have been there and have been operating. So the applicant is seeking to continue that use and then store his landscaping equipment in the rear of the property near that masonry building.
Okay.
And then ultimately expand to wholesale. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
So the retail use of the nursery is existing. That's been there. The farm stand, if you go down Herbertsville Road, the structures for that farm stand or whatever are there. I don't disagree. They're not exactly what I would consider beautiful. But it's there. That use is there. People come in, buy their plants or whatever, and then they leave. That's an existing use. So even if you were not to act favorably on the application, that use can continue to operate on that site.
Now, I understand. Just a couple of quick questions. All of the equipment, structure, you know, the stuff in the back, that's all gonna be removed?
It's all gone, yeah. I think I have like 2 or 3 more boats there, and that's about it.
Are they going?
They're going, yeah.
It's a huge improvement over
know.
what the site looked like even 2 weeks ago.
Right. Well, I'm just looking at the aerial. I'm just
Yeah, it's rough
trying to
looking.
verify, you know, what's going on.
I think I grabbed about 75 tires off the property,
Yes, sir.
you know. We really did a lot of
Take
cleaning.
them to Blewitts?
Right down the street.
No, that was, I'm sorry.
Who's going to be residing in that house?
Tilly's farm, Ed Tilly, he's gonna, if I do purchase the property, he's gonna be renting it from me, and he's gonna run the farm market, and he's gonna crop the farm in the back.
Okay.
But I'm gonna be helping him with it, so. Him and his wife will be living there.
They live there now, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Moretti?
No, I was going to ask the question.
When the last, okay.
Cleaning that all up, but I see on the pictures there compared to what's on the house. Just here, most of the boats are gone.
Yes. Yep.
Where the farm stand is in this corner? Is that where it is?
Yeah. Right on Herbertsville Road,
Right here.
the northeast corner.
Okay. So where do people park? Right around that area?
Yep, there's parking right in front.
It's been
Okay.
operating for years.
Years?
A question I have, is the property farmland assessed as now?
Yes,
And you're gonna maintain the Q farm,
correct.
You're gonna have to ask Jennifer as far as buffering of the commercial versus residential there.
Yeah. Jennifer, what about the buffering in the area?
So, a farm to a farm doesn't really require a buffer. So I would submit, they do need a farmland buffer on the northerly lot line, but only in the rear of the property, once it gets past the house and the vegetation. I think it'd be difficult where that masonry building is located. I don't know, Pat, how far is that off the lot line?
About 22 feet.
So I would submit that the applicant should seek to provide the buffer from the end of that masonry building towards the rear lot line, which would buffer any vehicle storage on the site from the adjacent farm. Understanding that it's farm fields at that location, the residence is not anywhere near this lot line, but I don't know if that will ever change, so putting, they can't, the strict compliance with the buffer is impossible because of the location of that masonry building. It's there, it's existing. But I would suggest that the applicant, from the rear of that masonry building to the rear lot line, provide the 50 feet along that one property line,
Okay.
which would screen any vehicle storage from any adjacent use.
Okay. Would they still need a variance for that?
They do technically because of where the building is located,
Yeah.
but I would submit that, as Mr. Howard had said, the removal of a number of illegal businesses and just the cleaning up of the rear of that site is such a benefit to this area. And if they do provide the buffer, that's a huge improvement over what is existing. And it's really just to buffer the storage of the vehicles. I mean, one could argue that the vehicles that are there are accessory to the farm, but he's honest in saying that it's his landscape business, so that I would submit that, that the justification, the positive of the overall application in that regard outweighs the detriment associated with the buffering, and you're welcome, Pat, I'm doing your job for you. But I would say that rear third of the lot could withstand a 50-foot buffer.
Okay.
Also, Jen, as far as positive criteria.
Right.
The Ag Board has stated that, some models like this with landscaping and nurseries,
It's kind of what they're looking to.
Exactly.
I would submit, and I was talking about this afternoon in my office, that the location of the landscape business and the storage of those vehicles on a facility like this that has an active nursery is far and away a better alternative to them taking another piece of property somewhere else in town and looking to put a landscape business on there. Number one, it's a big piece of property. The storage of the vehicles is going to be far off the road. You're not going to even see it. And they do tie into each other between the nursery and the landscaping business. And you're welcome again. I'm in a very giving mood tonight. Doesn't happen often. You guys would come on a good night.
You wanted to go home 2 hours ago.
I did. But I would submit that the dichotomy between the two uses is better than you're going to find on other pieces of property in town.
Mr. Moretti?
The storage of their equipment, are they going to need concrete pads?
I would suggest that they put it on something. Typically we require concrete when it's like a tow yard or something where it's very likely that the equipment is going to leak.
Right.
Here, it's equipment, it's in theory maintained, and I would ask Mr. Cornelia, are there going to be any maintenance of those vehicles on site? So no maintenance on site, but I would suggest that they be put on something. A concrete pad is obviously the best alternative, but something other than just the bare ground.
What about that back 50-foot?
Well, they would have to be outside the 50
Yeah.
feet. Yes.
Mr. Massa?
Mr. Chairman, it seems that everybody the professionals seem to like this concept here. I'm hearing that loud and clear.
I do like it.
You like it.
Well, the township's thinking of,
I'm happy to hear that, and it seems they've cleaned up a lot of.
They have.
issues there. So I'm very happy. We seem to be singing Kumbaya.
We are. It doesn't happen often, right?
Yeah, so,
and just one last thing to add.
Yeah, me too.
The township's looking to define landscaping businesses and put them in certain zones in town, and our idea is the SED zone and the HD3 just because of the commercial nature. But in piggybacking on what Jen was saying, absolutely, this type of use on this site works hand in hand, and ideally, this is where these types of uses probably should go. Hard to put that in the ordinance, but this seems to be a very suitable site. Again, you're welcome.
Real quick question. The equipment, your Bobcat and some of the other equipment, that would be parked inside the building,
Correct, it's all cemented.
All of your mowers?
Inside the enclosed
They'll all
trailers?
be inside the building?
No, I have enclosed trailers.
Okay.
They'll be inside, they'll be stored in the trailer.
All of that will be inside storage?
Yep.
So technically, the only thing that would be stored on the site would be 3 rack bodies and maybe 2 mason dumps,
yeah.
correct?
I
Because
could
the
put the
other 3
Bobcat,
trucks
I could
go,
put them in the garage.
they all could go in the garage too, huh? Do you,
Yeah.
yeah, that's why I'm asking the question. Yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of eliminates that. But, you know, of course, using tractors and stuff for the farm, you know, we can't get into telling you where you're gonna park your tractors. I'm a farmer, so,
Okay,
you know, I park my tractors out on the farm.
the farm, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just ask a couple questions. Mike, can you talk about the existing gravel driveway to the site with width and composition? Can it support a fire truck? Is it 20 feet wide?
So what the applicant was going to propose, as a result of the board professional letters and the fire official letter, was widening the on-site access to where we're parking and to the masonry building to 20 feet, and making sure it's a firm gravel section. He's happy to comply with that.
And then I would just ask that you provide enough distance past the end of the building so there's a turnaround, so that way a fire apparatus can get in and out of the site there. And then for Mr. Campanelli, you say you're going to have 2 winter employees. Is that, they do snow removal, icing?
Correct, yes.
You have no issue with storing all salts inside the building and everything like that?
Inside the building.
Okay, and then do you do any hardscapes?
We do.
You have any issue with storing all your hardscape stuff inside the building as well?
I mean, to a point.
Okay,
Like, we have some leftover block or something, we'll probably put it on pallets outside.
okay. It would be within the general vicinity of the building. It's not going to be haphazardly all over
No.
the site? Okay. I think that's all I have for right now.
I would just submit that if there's gonna be any exterior outside storage of any kind of material, that it be screened, so that.
Can't see it.
Should the board act favorably on the application, as part of resolution compliance, if we could just see a general location and how you're gonna screen it.
And just remember, there is a farmland buffer in the back, so
Right.
you're gonna have to, you know, stay clear of that.
Can I just clarify the proposed buffer at the rear to the west of that masonry building? We want to be 50 feet off of the property lines
Correct.
and then provide the four-season screening, right? Mr. Campanelli also is going to be replacing much of the fence on site with a brand-new deer fence surrounding the farmed areas too. So that in sync with
Allowed to
the,
go in the buffer.
yeah. So that's just something I wanted to have on the record for replacing the fence.
Is there any internal gates to the driveway? Like, can a fire truck get through there without it being locked?
I saw your note about Knox boxes,
Yeah.
so if there is one cutting off the driveway from the front to the rear, we'll be happy to provide a Knox box.
And then, Mr. Ward, you're asking for relief for providing sidewalk, correct?
That's correct.
And I would submit to the board that this is really not a road that is pedestrian friendly and there is no sidewalk, so I would take no exception to the relief as requested.
One last thing, I will note that Herbertsville Road is a county road, so you're gonna have to submit a site plan to Monmouth County. They probably are gonna require some right-of-way dedication, it's only 3 to 5 feet, something like that.
Yeah, we anticipated that, and we'll be happy to deal with them.
I have a question regarding like mulch, like chips for the plants, for the nursery and topsoil. Do we need to screen that?
I didn't hear any testimony that they were gonna be storing any of that kind of material on site. Is that gonna be stored on site?
Mulch and stuff?
Yeah.
Just for my own use? If I
So
had,
is it gonna be just like, is it gonna be in an enclosure, or are you gonna keep it in bags inside the building? Like, how do you anticipate?
I really thought of it.
How many truckloads at a time are you gonna have on the site?
Truckloads of mulch?
Yeah.
I pick them up at Mazda and we go right to the job. If we have some left over, we'll put a pile in the back,
Do you have a problem restricting the size of that pile,
no?
Jen?
What?
To restricting the size
No,
of
I
the...
heard that, but what is your thought?
Well,
on
probably
restriction?
not to over a truckload.
I don't have any problems with that. Again, I would just submit, if you act favorably on the application, just the general location of where that's gonna be.
And screen
And
it?
show how it's gonna be screened.
Well,
Okay.
if he's using it in the nursery stock, though,
I agree. mean, it's
he's
right-
not required to screen it.
I agree.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I am appreciative that the applicant is very forthright. But if we could just get a general idea of where it's gonna be located, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, we're not gonna go out there with, a wheel it off, but just generally, and just make sure that it's in the rear so that it's not, readily visible from.
In the road?
Well, see, that's a standard procedure with the plant material, in the nursery, so, being agriculture, that you're not bound by the screening of that, but, as long as you keep it down within a minimum on the height,
Okay.
truckload. But I agree with Jen, locate it.
I mean, it doesn't have to be like.
Staging
surveyed out, but
area.
Just like a general idea, you understand what I'm talking about? Okay.
Absolutely.
I have nothing further.
What about stone, rock,
They spent a lot of time.
Stone?
rock, any other,
I mean, there'll be some, but I don't really stock it, There's not gonna be stockpiles of it.
Stone or rock?
topsoil, dirt?
I do use that a lot, so, maybe a truckload at a time. If I have some left over, I'm not gonna throw it out, I could use it for the farm too, so it's kinda hand in hand.
And I know Jim's gonna bring this up, we don't want mountains built up out there, bring in, fill in there and stockpile it until
No.
you need it for another job,
And I would hate for them to have to put those concrete
barriers in.
barriers because it's in the rear of an actual nursery.
No,
But I would say if you could limit it to a truckload at a time,
Okay.
if that works.
That's
If it doesn't work, you gotta tell me, but if it does work, then that, I don't know, personally, I don't exactly know how much that is, but I can generally tell if it's more than a basic truckload, if it starts to be.
No, that's
10 or
definitely,
15.
I'm not gonna have tractor trailers dropping off stuff. I pick up my own stuff, so,
no, I understand, but you also have to understand too, as Mr. San Clemente, the variance goes with the property. And, this is a farm now, and we're giving you, if the board looks favor, that's a commercial use into here.
Okay.
So that goes with the property. So no matter, if we don't say any of this, and you turn around and sell the property, and you get an excavator in there that's gonna run a nursery, and then all of a sudden, you got 200, 300, 400 yards of dirt piled up back there, that's what we're trying to eliminate.
gotcha, okay.
Is that right, Jen?
I agree, and I mean, the difference here between a lot of the other locations,
know.
as you know, but the difference is that this is a farm technically, and it's a nursery, so they could have topsoil there for the nursery use, independent from the landscaping.
Exactly.
As part of the Right to Farm Act, and there's really nothing we can do about it.
Exactly.
So I'm just asking that we generally be located, that it not be not be more than a truckload or two, and if possible, could be screened, especially from the front. So long as people can't see it from the front, you're gonna have that buffer anyway, so I think that's pretty much as we can ask as far as that goes.
Mr. Chairman, I just have two last questions regarding access to the site. So there is a driveway, it looks like, on the property to the north. Does that link up to your property? Or is that used for the residential dwelling, or?
It's a physical connection,
Okay.
but we don't know the history of it, and we don't believe that there's any sort of agreements in place legally.
Okay. I would just suggest that maybe would you agree to a condition that all commercial site access is gonna be through the main driveway, not utilizing the driveway?
Yeah.
Okay, and then another thing that the board should possibly consider is an asphalt driveway apron just to prevent any spill out of gravel onto the roadway there. We are intensifying the use of the driveway. I think that would be a wise decision. The board should so choose. 25 to 35 feet is typically would be enough.
Okay.
I was planning on asphalt in the whole front, cleaning it up, so, where they park.
Yep. Okay, you can continue.
I'd like to ask Mr. Ward some questions with regard to the use variance.
Can we just first qualify, Mr. Ward?
Sure. Mr. Ward, could you provide the board with your credentials?
Sure. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering from Drexel University. I'm a licensed professional engineer and planner in the state of New Jersey. Been an engineer licensed for 6 years and a planner for 5. I believe I've testified in front of this board, definitely the planning board in town. Other numerous boards throughout Monmouth County and elsewhere.
We accept your credentials.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Ward, for the benefit of the board, could you discuss the criteria, the positive and negative criteria for granting use variance and how those relate to this property based upon your review of the site?
Sure. So to keep it relatively brief, when you're looking at the D variance, you're looking at site suitability. It's the first thing you have to ponder. As Ms. Beam assisted me here with some of that, I agree about the kind of the symbiotic relationship between a nursery and the farm stand and what we're proposing here with the landscape company occupying the rear of the property. If you look at the site, the site is very suitable for what we're proposing, particularly the location in which we're proposing the storage of vehicles. This was basically illegally a graveyard for some vehicles and some boats in the same location we're proposing to have this landscape operation. So with the site being on Herbertsville, which is a very nice connector street to the service area for the applicant and elsewhere, it is not obtrusive to allow for commercial vehicle traffic to enter Herbertsville because it is heavily trafficked today. And the site being what it is today and what it was, I think it's a very suitable site. For the application, it does promote some of the purposes of planning, which I'll hit very briefly. I feel this is an appropriate use. While we are here requesting a use variance, as I stated before, it is an appropriate use. We're securing safety from fire. Previously, that gravel driveway is not an 8-inch section. It's not wide enough, at least what the fire official's comments suggest. So we're choosing to enhance the driveway, widen it to allow access to a building, the masonry structure, adequate access, and also to a commercial vehicles parking area. And then this is promoting a desirable visual environment. As Mr. Campanelli has stated, what he's done to date, he's cleaned up the property already. He has bigger plans to really clean it up. He's eliminated a lot of the debris and wasted vehicles. He wants to clean up the streetscape, clean up the nursery and the farm stand, and make it very presentable and hopefully have a successful farm stand in the future. In addition, we're also going to be adding this buffer at the rear of the property and with the intent of meeting the 50-foot requirement from the ordinance. So that all said, we are promoting a desirable visual environment. In terms of the negative criteria for the application, you really have to look at impacts to neighbors and to the public. The parking of the commercial vehicles at the rear of the property beyond the building to the west is out of the public view shed. We're not going to be able to see it from Herbertsville Road. Any impacts such as the stockpiling or what have you, we'll stipulate that we will screen it appropriately. In terms of neighbor impacts, the nursery farm stand operates, is an existing use, not necessarily operating today, but existing use. That's to be maintained, so there's no impacts there because there's no change in use. With the addition of landscape vehicles and parking at the rear of the property, we are proposing that buffer, the 50-foot four-season buffer. That'll mitigate any potential impacts from that parking. And then if you're looking at the master plan and the zoning ordinance, this zone is really for agriculture and horticultural uses. And really, although we're not a perfect fit in that with the landscape vehicle parking, I mean, we are, in essence, an agriculture and horticultural use, and we're maintaining that rural setting with the farm stand at the front. So I think the two uses are mutually beneficial to each other, and gives you the confidence to approve the use and the associated variances with it.
I'd also like you to touch upon, there's a few C variances that exist. Are those all existing conditions essentially?
They are, and when the board's considering a D variance, a D1 use variance, the bulk variances can be subsumed into that approval, where if you're considering the use, you're considering everything that comes along with the use. But yes, you have existing nonconformities. There are a couple of small structures on the north side of the masonry building that Mr. Campanelli has either already removed or is about to. There's a wood container, a greenhouse, a coop, and one of the pole tents, all on the north side there, right along the property line, north of that building. He wants to remove those, so those are existing nonconformities that are right up on the property line. Those will be removed, and you know,
change from your original plan.
that's a change. That's something we've considered just recently, and he's you know, his plans have changed as he's cleaned this property up. He's discovered some areas that are more usable than others. There is some vegetation back there already, so the goal is to just allow that to continue to grow and, you know,
Are they going to
become
be
more full.
relocated or eliminated?
Those are going to be removed.
Even the greenhouse in the front?
Not the one up in the front. That one is directly accessory to the farm stand. That the farm stand uses that on a daily basis when operating. It's the four structures just to the north of the masonry building. They're all indicated as to remain on the plan.
Does that require a variance?
To remove it,
To leave it there and for the use?
it's an existing nonconformity. They're not, this application is not exacerbating that at all. If this application never came before you, that structure could get taken.
Okay. Okay. Go, Mr. Moretti.
You may have answered this already, but I'm looking at the roadway, and it goes all the way around the farm area and all the way to the back. I would assume that would be the fire, meet fire code, but there's no turnaround at the end of that.
That is the existing perimeter drive for the farm. What we're going to propose is everything from Herbertsville to the proposed parking area, which is west of the masonry building, is going to be widened to 20 feet with a thick, 8-inch thick section of gravel. The parking area for the vehicles will have an adequate turnaround. So the goal is to provide fire access to the buildings and the vehicle parking. We don't necessarily need fire access to the opposite side of the farm where there is no critical structure or vehicle there.
So we don't have to worry about any of the plants catching on fire?
Got water.
Yeah?
No, and the fire official only expressed to buildings and parking areas.
Okay.
Is that okay, Charles?
Charles, is that right?
I would say that's sufficient. We've done that on prior applications. All Green Landscaping a couple years ago was a similar setup, so I don't foresee an issue with that.
Unless the board has other questions, I have no further questions.
Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I just have one last
Professionals?
thing. So, have you done any environmental assessment of the property as regards to wetlands or anything like that? Has there been any determination? There is some mat wetlands along the west side of the property. Have you had someone take a look at that to do a presence or lack there?
We have not formally. We were aware of that from the
Okay.
state mapping. And with some of the improvements that are coming along with the widening of the gravel and the like, we understand that there will be applications required to other agencies. So we'll take a look at that. Mr. Campanelli did perform a phase 1 assessment
Okay.
on the property.
Yeah, just say any approval should be contingent on getting an LOI and just to making sure that none of the improvements disturb any of the wetlands or associated buffers with that.
Charles, that wetland you're talking about, is that up by the masonry building?
No, it's all the way along the west side of the property. There is a little
If it-
finger that sticks kind of the northwest corner, but
If it's being farmed, he doesn't have, he's not required. It's under farm, he's not required.
Well, it all depends on how far he's extending the driveway, you know what I mean? If he's not getting anywhere close to the wetlands, then it may not be an issue, but,
Now, where are you talking about? You
so
talking
the
about-
northwest corner of the property, there is,
That's right here?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Never
so it
mind.
all depends on how far they're extending their improvements. Obviously, if they're only going 50 feet or so past the building, that might not be an issue. I just think,
But he's gonna have a 50-foot buffer back there, too.
yeah, true enough. So I think it would just be prudent for the board to require that, just make sure that there's no issues down the line with it.
Okay. I thought you were talking about back in here.
No, 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 it's a small sliver along the west side of the property in
Okay,
that northwest
gotcha.
corner.
And there's a couple options for wetlands, LOIs, so we could possibly do a presence absence for a
Okay.
footprint disturbance, something like that. We'll be happy to comply with that.
Okay.
That large Mason building, what is that going to be used for?
I'll defer to Mr. Campanelli on that.
Storage?
It's all storage. So that's where you're going to store all your trucks and,
Trucks, my Bobcat, hand tools,
okay,
farming stuff.
okay. All right.
It's gonna be outside the building.
Or in the greenhouse. He sets that up.
In the green, yeah. All right, any further questions from the professionals? All right, need a motion to open this to public.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Hughes,
I'll second that.
second by Mr. Moretti, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Boy,
Anyone,
there's a lot of opposition out there.
anyone out there want to oppose this?
I am not going to object to this one.
Yeah, okay.
Are you a landowner here?
Seeing none, need a motion to close the public.
And make a motion to close to the public.
Motion by Mr. Moretti,
I'll second that.
second by Mr. Hughes, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, any final words from the applicant? No? Good, okay.
There, Ron, they're entitled to a full board, so they, you know, I think one will need to ask.
Oh. This is not a full board, Ron, so,
Well, once again, well, you know, let's try the straw poll approach. As you know, the applicant's entitled to a full board, which is 7. This is a use variance, so we're talking about, we have, 6 members there. Straw poll, if there's no opposition to an approval, there's no one here. If the board feels that they'd like to move it forward, and that's the sentiment of the board, I'll ask Mr. Keneally if you're satisfied. Doesn't seem to be any opposition. If somebody wants to present a motion, and if it's seconded, I think we should go forward.
I make a motion to approve with the
I'll-
conditions.
I'll second that motion, but I also gonna say, due to farmland, Jen, Charlie, they all know how I vote on this, but I'm gonna second this motion because I feel that this is a farm against a farm. In knowing how the Ag Board has looked favorable in this type of operation, in combining the two hand in hand, I don't see a problem with the farmland, variance is required here. So I'll second that motion. Based on all testimony put on the record, based on, the certain buildings are gonna be removed, the further cleanup of the site, the driveway width, the aisle with the turnaround, plus the little wetlands in the back, just figure out what that is to satisfy our professionals. I don't feel that this is a detriment. I feel that it's actually cleaning a site up that's kind of run down, and I look very favorable to this.
thank you. Eileen, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes, you can. Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Massa,
Yes.
Mr. Mertens,
Yes.
Mr. Moretti,
Yes.
Mr. Nansen,
Yes,
and Vice Chairman San Clemente.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Good luck.
Good
Thank you.
luck.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Welcome to Howell. And I gotta say one thing, thank you for coming to the board first.
Yeah.
I know we did, kinda had to help move things, and do things, but thank you for coming first.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We
Good
will
luck.
Do it right once.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, anything else?
You can't give me a PDF of it, can you?
Anything else? No.
No, I'll take it.
We covered that.
I
Make
can't
a motion
scan it,
to
I can't do
adjourn.
anything with it.
Okay, motion to close by Mr. Nansen,
Second.
by Mr. Hughes, Mr. Massa.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Hey, we keep.
Zoning board done at 10:07.
Worried when I saw nobody.